That is policy. No questions. Gareth Lorne said it without looking at me, as if reading from a script he had used 100 times before. I tried to draw in a breath. Gareth, I just want to underst, but you are already fired. He slid the termination notice toward me with 2 fingers. Careful, deliberate, like the paper might burn him if he touched too much of it. Your access has been removed. HR will be in touch. My name is Elowen Hart. I had worked under this man for 9 years, built half the administrative systems he now pretended to manage, and somehow he still could not look me in the eyes while he ended my job in less than 1 minute. I did not argue. I did not ask him why. I did not even reach for the chair behind me. Something inside me went very still, like a rope snapping clean. Gareth leaned back, tapping the edge of his desk with a pen. It is nothing personal. It is just policy. His tone was polished metal cold, practiced, impossible to grip. I folded the notice once, slipped it into my bag, and turned away from him. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the effort of keeping them steady. I forced myself to breathe evenly as I walked to my small corner space. My coworkers stayed silent. Some pretended not to see me. Others looked like they wanted to, but were afraid to cross whatever invisible line Gareth had drawn. I packed my things: 1 mug, a notebook, a small photo of me and my mother, and closed the box. No speeches, no goodbyes. Silence felt safer. When I returned to his office, Gareth was still pretending to be busy. He glanced up, waiting for me to break down or beg. I did neither. Instead, I set a small envelope in the center of his desk. He frowned at it but did not reach for it. Authority mattered more to him than curiosity. "Thank you for your time here," he said, dismissing me with a wave. I walked out without responding. The door clicked shut behind me, sharp as a closing verdict. On the other side of that door, everything I had held back for years began to shift. I used to believe I understood how Cascade Meridian Solutions worked. For 9 years, I had been the senior administrative systems coordinator, the person everyone came to when software froze, when reports broke, when someone needed a loophole untangled. I knew the rules, the workflows, the history of every half-finished idea that had passed through our office. But the day Gareth Lorne became my supervisor, the word policy changed shape. The first time he used it, he stood over my desk with a stack of forms. "Sign the new handbook. Elowen. It is mandatory. Page 30 covers overtime expectations." I flipped through it. "This removes paid overtime entirely. That is policy," he said. Voice flat. "No exceptions." The second time came during budget season. I told him, "If we cut the licensing cost again, the audit logs will fail." He smirked. "We follow policy. If the system breaks, you fix it." Then there was the day he cornered a junior staff member, Maya Ivers, in the hallway. She whispered to me later, "He told me that questioning a directive violates internal policy. I was only asking what to name the folder." The word had become a wall, one he hid behind whenever he wanted to force something through. It erased arguments, erased complaints, erased people. I held on to the job because I needed the insurance for my mother's treatment and the steady hours to keep her appointments organized. For a long time, that fear kept me quiet. Then, one winter afternoon, Maya came to me shaking after Gareth yelled at her again. She said, "He changed my evaluation score and blamed policy. He said it is legal if a manager does it." Something in me tightened. I opened a blank document at home that night and named it Policy Log. I typed the date, the incident, and Gareth's exact words. It was the first time I admitted to myself that the rules we followed no longer protected us. I did not know then how far that word would eventually push me. The first entry in my policy log was short, just a date, a name, and the sentence Gareth used to justify changing an evaluation score. I wrote it with the calm of someone pretending she was only taking notes for later. But I remember how my stomach tightened as I typed. I did not start that log to rebel. I started it because people were disappearing from the office with no explanation. One morning, a desk would be full, and by lunch, the chair sat empty while someone from HR boxed up personal things. Every time it happened, Gareth said the same line. It was handled according to policy. I needed something, anything that could protect me if my name ever landed on the same list. A few weeks later, Maya stopped by my desk with red eyes. "He told me to change my timesheet," she whispered. "He said the extra hours make the department look inefficient." I opened the log that night and added her words. Then came the day Gareth overrode HR. I was in the hallway when the HR manager, Dana, confronted him. "Gareth, the form is incomplete. We cannot process it." He didn't even blink. "It is approved under managerial policy." Dana turned to me as he walked away. "That policy does not exist. He is inventing things." That night, I added another entry. Eventually, the list grew altered scores, pushed deadlines, hidden directives, locked files, each one typed neatly in paragraphs spaced just the way my ex-boyfriend, a paralegal, once showed me. He used to say, "If you ever need to prove something happened, format it like someone important will read it." I never thought I would use that advice. As the months passed, I found myself wishing the log would stay buried in my computer forever, wishing the file would remain nothing more than a quiet warning to myself. But Gareth kept giving me reasons to keep typing. The envelope I left on Gareth's desk sat in the center of the polished wood, like a tiny crack in the surface he tried so hard to control. I could almost picture him staring at it after I walked out, pretending it meant nothing, pretending I meant nothing. But that envelope held no evidence at all, just a single printed line. "Per internal reporting policy. This is your official notification." A decoy. One he would assume contained exactly what he feared most. I crossed the street and ducked into a small cafe, the same place I used to escape to during lunch breaks when his voice got too sharp or the office felt too tight. I placed my box at my feet and sat with my hands wrapped around nothing, because even lifting a mug felt like more steadiness than I had. My phone buzzed. A message from the labor rights firm in downtown Portland, the one I had contacted months ago and never thought I would have the courage to send information to. "We received your full report. Ms. Hart. Everything is secure. A case file has been opened." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. All those entries, all those nights typing, all those moments when I wondered if I was imagining the danger, now they belonged to someone with real authority. Another vibration. A second message. "Your documentation is thorough. We will reach out with next steps." I exhaled slowly. The tightness in my chest eased, only a little. Behind the cafe window, through the rain-streaked glass, I saw Gareth appear in his office doorway, even from across the street. I recognized the rigid line of his shoulders, the way he held himself when he felt something slipping. He looked down at the envelope. He did not open it. Not yet. He did not know the evidence was already far from his reach, protected by people he could not intimidate. For the first time in a long time, the fear in the room belonged to him, not me. By the next morning, Cascade Meridian was already unraveling. I heard it through the steady ping of messages arriving before I even got out of bed. HR pulled half the department into a meeting. Maya wrote, "No one knows why." A second message followed almost immediately. "Compliance is here. Real compliance. Not the internal kind Gareth bullies around." I sat up slowly, the weight of the previous day settling into something sharper. My phone buzzed again. "Gareth has been pacing the hallway for 20 minutes. Dana from HR sent. He keeps saying someone misinterpreted policy." Another message dropped in before I could respond. "Did you leave something on his desk? The office is going nuts." I pressed a hand to my forehead. Gareth must have opened the envelope by now, or maybe he was still staring at it, imagining everything it could contain. Later, Maya called me directly, her voice low and shaken. "He tried to blame Micah. She was crying in the restroom, and he said her incompetence probably triggered an incorrect policy escalation. I closed my eyes. Micah had nothing to do with anything. He knows that, Maya whispered, but he is frantic. I have never seen him like this. In the background, voices rose sharp, confused. Then Maya said, "Hold on. Legal just arrived. They are asking about some locked files on the server." My pulse quickened. I knew those files. I had documented them months ago. "What are they saying?" I asked. They said the access trail leads back to Gareth's account. Elowen. He looked like he was choking on air. I did not speak for a moment. Gareth always believed he controlled the narrative, that hiding behind policy made him untouchable, but once someone else looked behind the curtain, they would see what I had seen for years. A final message came through from an old co-worker I barely spoke to anymore. "Gareth looks like he has seen a ghost. Did you do something?" I put the phone down gently, feeling the shift I had waited for begin to move through the walls of that office without me. By the third day, the messages took on a different tone. The panic had shifted from Gareth to everyone around him. Maya called me in a trembling whisper. They suspended 2 people from operations. They said the system logs show collaborative misuse. They think someone helped Gareth hide things. My stomach tightened. "Who did they suspend, Micah and Devin?" She said. "Neither of them even likes Gareth. They are terrified." I pressed the phone harder against my ear. "They did nothing wrong." "That does not matter right now," Maya said. "Compliance wants someone to blame before legal escalates this. People are crying in the break room." I closed my eyes and breathed slowly. I had wanted accountability, not chaos. I wanted Gareth exposed, not the people he used as shields. Another message came through this time from Devin himself. They told me not to come in tomorrow. "Elowen, I swear I never touched those locked files." My hands shook. "I know. Devin, I know you did not." He hesitated. "Someone needs to tell them where to look." After we hung up, I stared at my laptop. The policy log sat in its usual folder, quiet and complete. It held every detail, every command Gareth issued, every time he ordered someone to adjust numbers or hide a directive. I opened a private browser window and found the anonymous compliance portal I had researched months earlier. My breath felt thin as I typed, "Review the version history of the locked policy files." The edits were not collaborative. They came from one account, G. Lorne. Check the timestamps. They matched the directive emails he sent to staff. I hovered a moment, then clicked submit. Within minutes, Maya sent another message. Something shifted. Compliance just asked specifically for Gareth's login history. No one else's. "What did you do?" I stared at the screen, feeling the weight of every choice I had made settle into something steady. By the end of the week, Gareth was throwing everything he had at the walls closing in around him. First came the mass emails. "Team, recent confusion stems from a misunderstanding of internal policy. Please refrain from speculation." Then another. "All questions must be routed through managerial channels. Unauthorized reporting violates protocol." Maya forwarded one to me with a bitter note. "He sounds desperate." I did not reply. My phone rang twice that afternoon, Gareth's name flashing across the screen. I let it ring until it stopped. The third time, he left a voicemail. "Elowen, we need to speak. You have information taken out of context." I deleted it without listening further. Dana from HR sent me a quiet message late that evening. "Compliance received your documentation from the outside firm. It is thorough. They look..." Rattled. I felt my breath catch. I had expected them to review it eventually, but hearing it out loud made the entire situation feel sharper, real in a way that stung. The next morning, Maya called again. He tried to tell HR this is all a policy misinterpretation. He said he only made changes to protect departmental efficiency. I heard muffled voices behind her, tense and fast-moving. She lowered her voice. "Elowen," they pulled the handbook. The one he rewrote last year. My pulse thudded in my ears. What about it? They found a clause, he added. She paused, letting her words land. Any leader who jeopardizes legal compliance through discretionary policy enforcement will be suspended pending review. The line sat between us, heavy as stone. Maya exhaled. He used it to scare people. Now legal says it applies to him. I leaned back in my chair, stunned by the symmetry of it, his own wording, his own arrogance, tightening around him like a snare he never thought he could step into. Gareth sent one final mass email before noon. Effective immediately. I will be out of office for procedural evaluation. He signed it with shaking authority. The email arrived 2 days after Gareth's suspension, an invitation to interview at a Portland nonprofit that specialized in labor rights digitization. I reread it twice before replying. I had sent my resume on a restless night weeks ago and assumed it had disappeared into the ether. When I arrived, a woman with cropped silver hair introduced herself as Lydia Bram, the program director. She led me into a small conference room and sat across from me with a calm, unreadable expression. "Ms. Hart," she began, folding her hands. "We reviewed your application. You have strong administrative and systems experience, but you also filed a formal complaint against your former employer." Her tone wasn't accusatory, but it wasn't soft either. "Yes," I said. "I documented what I saw. I followed procedure." Lydia nodded once. Some organizations worry that someone who reports misconduct might be confrontational. I held her gaze. If I had wanted confrontation, I would have raised my voice years ago. I chose documentation because it was the safest way to protect myself and the people around me. A second interviewer, a man named Jonah Reeves, looked up from my file. "You did not delete the logs even when it put you at risk." "No," I said. "Integrity is only real if it holds under pressure." The room went quiet. Lydia exchanged a short, almost imperceptible glance with Jonah. Then she leaned forward. "That was the test," she said. "We needed to see if your actions came from retaliation or principle." My breath caught. "A test. Most people justify their choices. You explained yours." She closed the folder. "We would like to offer you a position. You would help us build transparent record systems for workers across Oregon. It is work that requires precision and empathy." For the first time in months, the ground beneath me felt steady. Lydia extended her hand, not as a formality, but as an invitation to something entirely different from what I had left behind. By the time the nonprofit finalized my onboarding paperwork, Cascade Meridian had issued a company-wide announcement. Maya forwarded it to me before I even finished reading the first line. Following a preliminary review, Gareth Lorne is suspended pending a full investigation. A state-level compliance inquiry has been initiated. I called her immediately. A state-level inquiry that escalated fast. He did it to himself. Maya said, "Those locked files, legal traced every modification to his login. The timestamps match the directives he emailed us." I heard voices behind her relieved, laughing, exhausted. "What about Micah and Devin?" I asked. "They reinstated both of them," she said. "Full back pay. HR said their suspensions were improperly applied." Improperly applied. Another corporate way of admitting someone had abused power. A second email came through moments later, this time from Dana in HR. "Gareth is prohibited from entering the building during the investigation. Security was notified." I read it twice, stunned. "They banned him from the building," Maya exhaled slowly. "The clause he wrote into the handbook, the one about leaders who jeopardize compliance, legal used it against him word for word." I pictured Gareth reading that decision, the exact phrasing he had used to terrify employees now printed with his own name beneath it. The symmetry felt unreal, sharp enough to cut. Later that afternoon, I found a letter in my mailbox, written in a familiar looping script. It was from Devin, Elowen. "I do not know what you did or how you did it, but you did not destroy us. You saved us from him. Thank you. I sat on my living room floor with the letter in my hands, letting the weight of the past weeks settle in a way that did not crush me this time. Some part of my life at Cascade Meridian would always linger, but for the first time, it was no longer hanging over my head. It was behind me, fading, releasing its hold as something new finally took shape. I walked past Cascade Meridian for the first time since the investigation began. The building looked the same: glass, metal, trimmed shrubs, but it no longer felt like something that owned a piece of me. I did not go inside. I did not even slow down. I kept moving until I reached the bench overlooking the Willamette River, the same spot where I had once cried after Gareth shredded my evaluation in front of a project team. This time, I sat with steady hands. The envelope I left on his desk had followed me in memory all week, not because of what was inside, but because of what it meant. People kept asking me what I gave him. Evidence screenshots, a confession, a threat. None of those. It held only one printed sentence. Per internal reporting policy. This is your official notification. No accusations. No names. No details. Just a boundary he could not twist. It forced him to follow his own rules, the ones he had used to silence everyone else. It made him accountable before he even realized the real evidence had already moved far beyond his control. That envelope wasn't revenge. It was the moment I marked the line between who I had been silent, cautious, afraid, and who I chose to be next. 2 days earlier, Maya had called to tell me that Cascade Meridian implemented new oversight protocols. My policy log was now part of a training module for managers on ethical reporting structures. I laughed when she said it, not out of mockery, but out of disbelief. Something I wrote out of fear might help someone else stay safer than I was. As for Gareth, the disciplinary process continued. Word spread quietly his career in corporate compliance was over. No promotions, no industry invitations, no door left open. I rose from the bench and walked toward the light rail station, my new badge for the non-profit tucked into my coat pocket. Tomorrow would be my first official day designing systems that protected workers instead of trapping them. I did not feel triumphant. I felt clean, like I had stepped out of someone else's shadow and finally into my own life.